All right, Wednesday morning, and we are almost at Celtic's final game of the UEFA Champions League phase. We've got at least a couple more Champions League games to look forward to after this. But this is the final one. We're playing for points, John. We're playing for points, table position, money, coefficient points, and most importantly, bragging rights against our English opponents.
Yeah, I like playing for bragging rights. It means that there's a bit of an edge to the game, and I think that there will be an edge because I think the atmosphere is going to be good tonight. I think both sets of supporters that are there will be up for it, and that will inform how the game develops. I'm looking forward to it. I said yesterday that I'm looking forward to it, and I'm a little bit more excited this morning even about how it's all going to pan out.
Okay, yeah, loads to chat about, everyone. So come on in and let us know what you're thinking ahead of tonight's game. We
We're
got
already,
plenty of
we're already
discussion
getting a bit of
yesterday.
cheek in the chat, Hamish. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for
But,
joining us. I think we were
but
2 minutes
what?
late, and they were on our case, so that's
But,
fair enough.
but 2 minutes late is actually usually about 3 minutes early at the rate we normally go. So I don't know what you're all moaning about. Come on, we should all be in a great mood here. Celtic are about to go and beat Aston Villa and finish ahead of Villa. We're already going to finish ahead of Man City in the table, which is pretty cool. But no, an opportunity for the team tonight. How are you feeling? Let us know how you're feeling ahead of the game. Is there confidence there? Are you worried maybe about how things could go? How are you feeling, John? I know we covered this a bit yesterday, but have you changed at all?
Obviously, Carter Vickers being confirmed out by Rodgers is a bit of a blow, but I think from the training footage yesterday morning that started to be expected, and then Rodgers confirmed it in his press conference. So a kind of makeshift team in a way, in terms of like three forced changes from last week's win over Young Boys. Kyogo's obviously away to Rennes. Maeda's obviously suspended, and then Carter Vickers is out in defence. So it's not fantastic. I would rather we had a full strength team to really go at Aston Villa.
Yeah.
But we don't have that. So, but I don't think Rodgers is going to fancy it any less. And these are the kind of games that kind of Rodgers lives for, when he knows that more people that are watching than usual, and especially down in England. I think he'll be really trying to instill into the players that this is their chance to make a big splash on, the UK, because like it or not, English football does permeate UK media up here in Scotland, and people are well aware of everything. So if Celtic can make a splash, then the players will hear and feel it. So I think that will be the message from Rodgers tonight, is to go and prove yourself against a team in the Premier League, which obviously dominates all the media around.
Yeah, it's down to the team to try and prove themselves tonight, and I hope they play with the intensity that we all hope to see. I agree with you. It would have been great, I think, to really have a go at Villa tonight, or even possibly draw Villa in the next round for a double-legged tie. Like, I would really fancy that, with Jota, possibly a striker, possibly Kieran Tierney signed, Carter Vickers there, Daizen Maida there. Like, we're missing a few tonight, and I'll just read out the list, and some of these players don't even play for us anymore, but these are people you won't see tonight. Daizen Maida, Cameron Carter-Vickers, James Forrest, Jota, Kyogo, Alex Vai. Those are some
Yeah.
pretty decent players there. So I think that's probably what's kind of leading me to think it might be a tough one tonight, but I think someone pointed out to us recently that the team we fielded in Bergamo against Atalanta that night is pretty similar to the one we're likely to see tonight. And it was a backs to the wall performance that night, but we got a good result.
Well, let's just get around it. Do you think the team kind of picks itself tonight then? So it would be
Give me your
Schmeichel.
team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I personally, I've got Schmeichel, I've got
Yep.
Taylor, I've got
Yep.
Johnston on
Yep.
the full backs, and then it'll be Scales and Trusty in the centre of
Yep.
defence. Midfield for me is Callum McGregor, Arnie Engels, and Ray Tate.
Yep.
And then up front, you've got Yang, you've got Kuhn, and you've got Ida. And
Yeah.
that
That's the
seems
team
to
I've
be
got.
yeah. And I think that would be most people's team. I think the only one you might question is who starts in midfield. People will want to see McCowan and Bernardo, perhaps. People do like those players, but I think Rodgers will probably go with Hatate, McGregor, and Engels. And then, yeah, like I say, the rest of 11 does pick itself, I would suggest.
Yeah, I mean that midfield played really well last week, didn't it? And I think that's the European midfield. I think clearly, Bernardo and McCowan have a lot to offer, and even at European level, they have a lot to offer, I think. But I think in terms of starting, that's the midfield you want to see. Back line's fine. Scales and Trusty, it's an interesting one because Carter Vickers being out is obviously a blow, obviously, but I feel like it's less of a blow now than it would have been a year ago. I feel like we fell to pieces when Carter Vickers wasn't there in the past, and I'm aware I'm speaking ahead of the game, but it feels like Scales and Trusty they were the ones that started in Bergamo, as I say, and a valiant performance from both that night, heroic performance. So I feel all right with that. I would rather Carter Vickers was there, but I feel all right. For me, the big one's Dies and Maida. Not having Maida, I just think going to Yang is. Listen, Yang will try hard and all that, and he might surprise us tonight. But Yang starting away to the team that finished fourth in the Premier League last season, for me, it's mad.
And I know Adamida didn't score last week, but he had a big hand in the goal that went in, and hopefully that might be a little bit of a confidence boost. I know, unfortunately, we do keep bringing it up because the streak continues, but it's 14 games now without a goal. You're desperate for Adamida to step up and show something. Another big opportunity for him. Hopefully, there's space for him to cause a bit of problems. Aston Villa have got a few injury problems of their own, so they might not be full strength defensively, and hopefully that's something we can capitalise on the counter attack, because we know the Kuhn's got pace. If Yang's got, he does have pace, but if he can have good decision making, then hopefully Adamida can get a chance or two and stick one away. We're desperate for him to stick one away.
I feel all right about Ida tonight. Like, I feel like he's played down south. He's played in the Premier League. I don't think it's like a crazy step up for Ida tonight. And I always just think his raw attributes. You look at him. He's strong. He's quick. I think that translates quite well to European football. We've maybe not seen that quite yet. I think his build-up play can be sharper. He gives the ball a wee bit too much for me. But I think he'll be all right tonight. I think he could cause Villa problems. Kuhn's the big one. I mean, go on, Nicholas Kuhn. Go and run at them and show them the level of player you are, because he's the kind of guy playing into space tonight with the likes of Hatate and Engel supplying him, that you think really could cause them issues. So there are positive bits. I don't know. I just think we're missing a few players tonight, but I think we'll know relatively early on in the game what kind of Celtic performance it's going to be, because we'll either be a couple of goals behind after 20 minutes, or we'll be right in the game and feeling kind of good about ourselves.
Yeah, it's a shame for me that Kyogo has left before the last game. Ideally, you would have want Kyogo leaving after tonight, before the deadline. Ren wanted them early for whatever reason, but it would have been good for Celtic to just kind of try and hold off on doing that deal just one more week at least, or a few more days at least, and that would have just given us a bit more strength. I would suggest the same for Alex Valle, but going from Roger's comments, it sounded like Alex Valle had decided that his time at Celtic was kind of up and wanted to return to Barcelona and kind of push through this move to Serie A. So, he's not been training with the team this week or anything, so he's actually just away. So we've kind of lost out on that one as well, just for that depth, Hamish, more than anything. So that would be a slight frustration for some supporters. I would suggest that we've weakened the team slightly for what is still an important game. Obviously not in the context of the entire season, but I think for Celtic carrying forward momentum into the knockout stages, I think tonight is a pretty big game.
Yeah, I think that's kind of sums up how I feel. It's just that there's a good few positions there. I was looking at the front three tonight, and I'm like, who's coming off the bench? And Lewis Palmer's probably going to come off the bench. I'd mentioned Johnny Kenny, but it turns out that he won't be registered, will he, for the Champions League? So you'll be looking at Daniel Cummins potentially, and I personally don't see him coming on. I just don't see that. So are you going to ask those three players to play 90 minutes and then hope you can freshen things up for Sunday with Jota, etc.? So it does feel a wee bit like this is just the game that everything's come at once, with the Carter Vickers injury and the fact Forrest isn't back and Jota can't play. It's a bit of a tricky one tonight, but the positive news is we will be in better shape for the playoff, the stuff that really, really matters.
Yeah, we might see some of your favourite player tonight, Hamish, Luis Palma. We might see him off the bench at some point. I would suggest that we will, actually, because there's not many other options. So he's available. But I do think we'll be stronger for the playoff, because Rodgers, again, in his press conference, made it pretty clear that Celtic aren't done in the window. Obviously, he confirmed Kieran Tierney's coming back in the summer and that he wants him in January. So that is happening. That's kind of confirmed to be happening. It's kind of confirmed what everyone already knew. But you also spoke about replacing Kyogo and made it pretty clear that he's wanting a striker in before the transfer deadline. So it's not a case, some people have been surmising we've got Ida, we've got Maeda, we might be going with the kind of those as essential options. But Brendan Rodgers made it pretty clear that, we will be looking for another forward, another central forward to replace Kyogo. Yeah. And he made it also clear that Celtic have known about this for a few months and that work has been done behind the scenes. So we definitely, I'm hopeful that there will be a centre forward in before the end of deadline day.
No, I mean, like there has to be though. Like it's not a kind of a negotiable thing. A centre forward and a left back have to be signed this month. Or even if the left back isn't Kieran Tierney and it's a loan for 6 months, you simply need an option. I know people might say, Liam Scales can play out there. Not for me. Liam Scales is a centre back. That's where he's viewed. In the same way that Daizen Maeda is a left wing, I don't think we should be kind of getting these players to cover for the rest of the season. Because as I say, we've got big games coming up second half of the season. We're going for the treble. There's big league games to come, and obviously at least 2 big Champions League games, potentially more depending on the draw. So complete non-negotiable for me. Celtic have to sign a forward and a left back. I think they're both going to be loans. That's my gut instinct here, that we might end up with like I'm trying to think of an example, like a kind of bad example, but a Laxalt type loan for 6 months potentially, and then Kieran Tierney in the summer. I'd love to see Kieran Tierney signing now, but I feel like Arsenal might want to hold on to him.
I tell you, the words Laxalt type loan is filling me with dread, Hamish. You've not done me any good there. I think
Edson Braffied then, he was much better.
As long as we're not playing a World Cup final, we can bring in Edson Braffied or playing at Pittodrie. So I agree though. My problem with that is that Celtic are going into the knockout stages, and Rodgers is talking about how that was the goal, was to get to the playoffs, but that can't be like a stopping point for Celtic. Celtic need to come out this window as strong as they went into it. Obviously, Rodgers made it clear that he knew Kyogo was leaving. The club knew Kyogo was leaving. The club need to have done the work to ensure that Celtic are going into this knockout round as strong as possible. So getting in a couple of dodgy loans wouldn't be ideal. Obviously, you give every player a chance, regardless of the circumstances of their arrival. And Adam Ida did well on loan last season, so it's not a confirmation that they would do badly if they were here on a temporary basis. But I'm really looking for Celtic to show and utilise the resources they've got, knowing that all this was happening well in advance, to really pull the deal out the bag, the target that Brendan Rodgers wants in that squad.
Yeah, that's a key point that we've known about the Kyogo stuff for a while. So the club, really, if they're half decent, they should have a plan in place so that when Kyogo moves on, we move for someone.
I think it's a test of the recruitment progress that's been made. I think it's a test of the processes in place. And these are the standards that Celtic set themselves. Transfer work has been pretty good in the main over the last few years, and certainly in terms of like making profit on players has been fantastic. But the club need to prove that we can, both have this model of regeneration the team and selling players when they're when they've got value, but also maintaining the ambitions of the team on the pitch, which is to be competitive in Europe. Now, we've obviously made progress on that front this season already, but it's still, this is a test. The Kyogo replacement is a test, and I don't think it's one that really the club kind of, we talk about how much resources the club has and they can afford to have a transfer misfire or two, but I think when you're talking about replacing your star players, you can't really afford to bring in someone, maybe not in a financial sense, but you can't afford just for the progress of the club to bring in someone who's not at the level, who can play at the level of a Kyogo. This is the standard that the club have set themselves by bringing in these players that we all love, but you've got to live up to those standards. And again, I would say it's a definite test of where Celtic are right now. Everyone will be watching this kind of Kyogo transfer replacement, and if Celtic deliver alone in the final few days of the windows, I don't know if that's really a sign that Celtic have their ducks in a row here.
Yeah, and I mean, I get that, and I get that that's how it's viewed. I mean, what if the guy is Kvistgaard and Bromby just simply don't want to sell him this
Yeah.
month? So that's when I'm saying you potentially then look down at a loan for 6 months, and I'm not generally a fan of that. But if it means that you then get the guy you're after, and Kvistgaard does look really good in the summer, then potentially, I do think on your point on Ida, if we were looking at a forward, I'd be looking for like a kind of player playing at a higher level than Ida was a year ago. I mean, I think we're a year ago we were kind of looking for the O replacement, and I think now we're looking for the Kyogo replacement. So if it was to be a loan, I'd be looking for someone playing for a Premier League club or a major league around Europe, possibly obviously not playing directly at the moment because they're going out on loan, but someone with real pedigree who can come in and I'm not quite saying Craig Bellamy, Robbie Keane level, but I'd be looking for something similar to that in terms of, we have European Champions League knockout football to offer. It's a Celtic team going places. And if that's the solution for the rest of the season, it's not my ideal plan. But I'm struggling a bit. Like if I mean, are you saying if say for example, Kvistgaard isn't to be sold this month, do you move on to your next target just to get someone in this month permanently? Or it's a tricky one.
Ideally, the club are chasing two or three at the same time. I would suggest. I mean, it's difficult to know exactly how it works, the process, but I would imagine there's two or three prime targets for every position. I mean, surely that's what the club need to have. Anyone in any field of work needs to have contingency plans for what their goals are. So if Chris Arden's not available, I mean, if Chris Arden's not available, then Celtic should know that and know that he's not available, and I've done the work and done the kind of background to know that Bromby will be looking for something more than Celtic are willing to pay for him. So then it would be about moving on to the next ones. Again, with the Kieran Tierney situation, that's a bit different because we're lining that up for the summer, and he's available on a free transfer, and it's kind of a too good opportunity to turn down. And so realistically, you can foresee a loan happening in that sense, just to tide Celtic over till the summer because you know what you've got coming. But there's no guarantees that Celtic's targets this window, who clubs and agents are saying aren't available this window, will then be available in the next window. That's not really how it works. So I'm looking for Celtic to deliver on one of who they think can replace Kyogo in that lineup.
Yeah, as I say, bare minimum striker and left back have to be signed of some sort, and at a good level, because we're going for big things this season. There's always a fine line between Celtic having a total nuke in the transfer window and having the best window of all time, isn't there? And it could really play out either way over the last week.
Yeah, and again, it's interesting because kind of the sporting director was talking about Sondre Oriesetter yesterday, kind of saying that Sarpsborg don't want to let him go, but that things happen in the last week of the window. Everything is, I think just because it's been pretty slow in the first few weeks doesn't mean that it can't be busy in these last few days. I think a lot's going to happen over the next few days around Europe, like we said before. I think a lot's going to happen at Celtic, kind of in and out. This time last week, I don't think anyone expected Kyogo and Jota to be at their respective clubs that they are at right now. Things move very, very quickly, and Celtic, I think, are pretty well placed, or at least have the resources to place themselves in a strong position to deliver on the players that Brendan Rodgers and the scouting team wants. And I don't think there should be any massive excuses. I think Celtic need to pull out of the bag, because you can't just let your star striker leave and not have a viable replacement lined up. That's not how it works.
And yeah, the left back stuff's interesting to me. Like, why is Vi moved on when we've not yet brought Taylor in? I don't know if that was because they know Tierney's coming in. Clearly Tierney's been part of that reason, or maybe actually not. Maybe the fact Vi's just not featured as much as he wanted. But suddenly we're down to Greg Taylor as their only left back, and I'm like, why's that happened?
Reading between the lines on that, it seems like everyone obviously knows that Tierney's coming in, and Vi is trying to maybe think about either his long-term future, or Barcelona are thinking about a long-term transfer deal. And they've just kind of pushed the button on, well, Celtic aren't interested in him for the long term, let's look at other options. I feel like Vi's kind of return to Barcelona and going to Italy or wherever he ends up has been more led by the player, based on knowing what Celtic are doing with Tierney, rather than Celtic pushing the button and go, right, Vi, you just go away now.
We wouldn't do that.
No, and Rodgers kind of intimated that they were disappointed that he'd left a bit early
Yeah.
in his press conference early. So it seems like that's kind of player led, and it's maybe left Celtic looking for alternatives, because I don't know if the Tierney thing is going to come off before the end of January, because Arsenal are balancing their squad and potentially selling Zinchenko. And the chat from like the Arsenal reporting side was that Zinchenko might be higher up in the kind of the transfer priority, because they could get a fee for him, a larger fee, so they might sell him before and then keep Tierney until the summer. That might be what Arsenal decide to do. So there's things kind of out of Celtic's control in the left back, but Celtic need to be prepared and deliver on what is best for Celtic. It's just that it's a little bit unfortunate how the Valle thing turned out, because ideally you would have Valle in the building until you knew Tierney was coming or you had another option lined up.
He posted a message
Yeah.
online thanking the Celtic support. I guess he goes with everyone's best wishes, and he'll be another name to keep an eye on, just to see how high he goes. Has he got a good career in him from what you've seen, Alex Vai? What do you
I
think?
think he could play at a good level. Yeah. I think there's talent there. I think he's got that kind of industry and hard working ethic, and has clearly got a plan for his career, because he could have stayed at Barcelona and kind of drifted on the fringes of their squad, but he took the opportunity to come to Celtic. And Brendan Rodgers is quite complimentary of him.
Yeah.
There's no bitterness from Rodgers towards Valle. Talked about how he impressed in his 20 or so games, impressed against Atalanta. So I think Valle has something in him, and obviously I like to see all players that leave Celtic, whether they've been here for 6 months or 6 years, do well when they move on.
Add him to the Moritz Jens section with kind of short stay at Celtic, but decent enough. And as I say, wish him all the best. Okay, tonight we've got Aston Villa. I was chatting to a Villa fan from my own channel.
Yeah.
Trying to actually think of think of what he said. Basically, the thing I took away was it's a big game for them, and I was a little bit skeptical about that. I was thinking, how this is obviously the first season of this big league table, and how important is finishing in the top 8 for a club like Aston Villa, who, with all respect to them, aren't going to win the Champions League, I don't think. And the prospect of almost having an extra couple of games in the playoff round versus not having those, would it actually matter? But it seems like Villa fans who have done a bit of browsing on various YouTube channels and podcasts, seems like this is a really big game for them, and they really, really want to finish inside the top 8. They're talking about winning tonight and having their phones and checking the other games going on and stuff like that. But
Well, the thing about Villa, Hamish, is that's a group of fans who, similar to Celtic in a way, really pride themselves on their European history. Obviously, previous winners of the European Cup, which is a massive thing for them. So they kind of set their standards at a European level sometimes too. Some English clubs, it's just all about the Premier League, etc. But I think Aston Villa are one of the clubs in England, and certainly one of the sets of fans in England, who really pride themselves and enjoy the European experience. And really, playing at the top level in European football hasn't happened often for them over the last few decades. And I think this is an exciting time for them, and I think qualifying for that top 8 is a pretty big advantage, because you're playing less games, you don't have to go through a knockout tie, you're straight into the last 16, and you've probably got a more favourable draw. So I could see why they're up for it, and obviously they'll see Celtic as a winnable game.
yeah.
Because the reality of how sometimes Celtic are perceived by fans in England, and they'll see it as, Celtic have. I noticed yesterday when I was kind of reporting the news on Carter Vickers, there was a lot of Aston Villa fans conscious of the fact that Celtic have a pretty weakened team tonight. So their fans are very engaged and tuned into this and understand. And I think that will transfer to in the stands at Villa Park. It can generate a good atmosphere at Villa Park, and I think their fans will be really up for it tonight and kind of going for the kill. And that's something Celtic will have to survive, I think, in those opening 15 minutes and build themselves into the game, because the Villa fans will be urging their team to go at Celtic and pick up the win that they hope will propel them into the top 8, which is a really good result. I think finishing top 24 is a really good result, because when you look at some of the teams that are getting knocked out, some big teams that are falling by the wayside here. So just qualifying for the playoffs is good, but into that top 8 shows that you're one of the fancy teams in the competition, and having that confidence and having that momentum carrying into that, I think will be a big deal for a club like Villa. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's been frustrating me a little bit because I see them all and they're all just expecting Villa to turn up and win comfortably tonight. And I just really hope Celtic can give them a real game tonight and show the quality we are for all the. I don't know if it's a case of them looking at the league table and seeing there I think ninth and we're 18th and thinking, wow, there's a big gap here. We're a point behind them. If we win tonight, we finish ahead of them. So I found that a little bit frustrating. But listen, it's up to Celtic tonight to do the business. Just a few comments. Jason would be happy with a 0-0 draw
I think every
tonight.
Celtic supporter would be delighted with a draw at Villa Park. I think it would show that Celtic continue to be hard to beat at this level.
Yeah, Caden, we don't have a striker. Hamish, that's how I'm feeling. That was in response to my original question. There, yeah, centre back stuff's interesting. I think Tyrone Mings, the thought was he was going to miss a fair bit of time, but I don't think he is. It's not a serious injury he's got, although I don't know if he's going to play tonight. I don't think Unai Emery actually revealed whether he would play. If he doesn't play, they potentially have Luca Dean, the left back, at centre back, and Guy Matson at left back, who I think was poor at the weekend. So there could be opportunities there for us. John McGinn, your near namesake, may feature as well. He came back at the weekend for the first time in I think 6 weeks or so. So we know all about their threats, don't we? You know, Ollie Watkins is a good player. Yuri Tielemans, who Brendan Rodgers was asked about, is a hell of a player as well.
Yeah, and I think we'll see John McGinn at some point. I think, he's just coming back from injury, so but I'd imagine we might see John McGinn off the bench at some point. Just I think there's been a lot of chat. He was on about how this was a dream game for him in the Champions League. So, yeah, no, I think Celtic can. I just got a feeling about Celtic being able to produce the kind of performance that we saw against Atalanta and make it tough for Aston Villa to break them down and show a little bit of threat on the counter attack. I just hope that if we can kind of weather that initial storm, I think Celtic can grow into this game. And Celtic will be very familiar with Aston Villa, very familiar with their players. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers has played Unai Emery on a few occasions as well, so he knows what his teams are all about. And I think it'll have that kind of feeling of like those Premier League games that you see on the telly where anyone can really beat anyone. And hopefully Celtic have that mindset and have that belief tonight that they can show that, they can go toe to toe with a Premier League team. That's what we're wanting.
Yeah, big Celtic support there as well. So as much as we're going into a tough atmosphere, it's different to Ibrox because we're going to have I think 2,100 Celtic fans there. So that it's going to be a great atmosphere, and I think it is going to be a fast start from Villa. So it's a bit like Ibrox when we go there. Just don't give anything away, make a solid start to the game, and grow into it. From what I hear, Villa will give us chances. I think they're quite open, so I think there might be goals in it tonight. Referee is a guy you probably have heard of, Clement Turpin, which is one of those names you just know. French referee. Did the Champions League final a few years ago, Real Madrid, Liverpool. Also did the opening game of the Euros in the summer, John. We won't talk any more about that. So he's a big name referee for a big game tonight. And it's going to be an interesting night. I'm looking forward to it. The main thing is that we don't need a result. We just really want one. And we're not imagine going into tonight imagine we hadn't got that goal against Young Boys knowing we needed something tonight. Dear, oh dear.
What's your prediction, Hamish? What's your scoreline prediction here?
I think it might be a struggle tonight. I think we might lose 2-0, something like that.
Oh dear, that's not what we had. I want
And I
everyone
never
to.
I never say that, John. I had us winning in Dortmund and all of that. I don't know. But to be fair, the other time I had us losing was Atalanta, and the team surprised me and everyone else. So hopefully it's that kind of performance. I just think missing those players, it might be difficult against a Villa team with a crowd behind them who need a result. I just think I'm a bit worried, I'll be honest with you.
I'm going 1-1. I'm going to go strong for a 1-1, and I think Celtic can do something. I noticed a few people talking about a wee cheeky set piece goal, and I could see that happening. I could see Celtic delivering that in some capacity, and then hopefully you just kind of restrict Aston Villa and make it a frustrating night for them. Make it difficult for them. Don't make it easy to play against. Be combative. I don't think Celtic are going to go down there and win. I don't think that's something that I can see on the cards. But I think Celtic can be hard to beat tonight, and that's what I want to see. And if it's a defeat, I want it to be, like a hard-fought, narrow defeat that Aston Villa have really had to work for. And I would be happy with that, to being perfectly honest.
Yeah, regardless, it's been a brilliant campaign. We're going to have the draw on Friday. Listen, we'd all have settled for this when we saw the fixtures coming out. Oh, they're all coming out now, John. You spurred them on. Jerry 3-2 the boys. Natalie 2-1. Francis is saying, Hamish, keep the faith. Don't worry, I'm always keeping the faith. Well, maybe not always. Who else has got us winning? Wombat's going for a 2-2 draw. McLaughlin P's going 1-1. So, there is hope. I'm looking forward to seeing the game. I'm looking forward to seeing how Celtic match up against one of these hyped teams from down south. Listen, two big teams from down south have played against our rivals who aren't particularly good in recent weeks, and they've not blown them away. So, is the English Premier League overrated, John? We'll wait and see.
I don't know if it's overrated. It's certainly oversaturated for me. I think a few people have started drinking in the chat already, so good luck to that. At 10:30 in the morning, fairly getting on it and having a good time already. We love having everyone in the chat getting so involved in the show. It really makes these shows for me. Like I didn't do live shows for a long time, but I really enjoy having the audience and people pitching in with a bit of patter and a bit of cheek aimed at ourselves from time to time. I do enjoy that. So keep that up, everyone.
The guys are down in Birmingham.
Yeah.
They got there safely. Glad to hear. Yeah. So there'll be plenty of stuff on the website, etc., and the YouTube channel.
Yeah, we're figuring out a few logistics around what's happening with the YouTube channel later, so bear with us on that. But we will be obviously around. We'll have plenty of coverage on the website and on the channel. They are down in Birmingham. They were at Unai Emery's press conference yesterday. And we've got a few videos on the channel. So we've got the Brendan Rodgers press conference on the channel. We've got the Paulo Bernardo short press conference on the channel. And we've got a bit of training footage from Celtic, a bit of raw footage from the Celtic training ground yesterday, which I know a lot of people enjoy because it's kind of a little bit unfiltered and just a little good watch perhaps. And to have a cup of coffee and watch Celtic train for 15 minutes in the open session. It's good. I enjoyed it anyway.
Yeah. A long day ahead of most of you. Some of us get to sleep and waste some hours ahead of these games. So looking forward to it. And let's hope Celtic can round off their Champions League phase campaign with a positive result. And remember, look at the league table after the game tonight and you'll be able to tell who we could potentially play in the next round, and the draw for that is on Friday. So it's all happening. John, thank you. Thanks everyone for watching. Stick with us. More to come. I'll be back this time tomorrow.